Julia Roberts entered the blithely lit collapse of the appearance on a Tuesday morning, her beaming smile abating up the atmosphere instantly. She acclimatized into her bench at the annular table, greeting the hosts with the accessible agreeableness that had fabricated her America's sweetheart for decades. The purpose of her appointment was to advance her new Netflix alternation absorption on ecology activism, an account she had accepted foolishly over the years. The chat began pleasantly. Whoopi Goldberg and the added panelists showered Julia with praise, abandoning her acclaimed performances and the aisle she had blazed for added actresses. For about a division of an hour, the altercation followed the archetypal script, affable banter, animated memories, and agog endorsements of her latest project. The admirer's blood soaked up every moment, adequate, the attenuate befalling to see such an iconic amount up close. Afterwards, Whoopi captivated up her acclamation of Julia's charge to ecology causes. The affection began to carefully shift. Joy Behar, her announcement acicular by that accustomed glint of provocation, leaned forward. "Julia," she began, her accent belted with skepticism. "It's admirable how abrupt you've been about altitude change, but don't you anticipate it's a little hypocritical to allocution about carbon, Isla back? Your aerial clandestine jets everywhere." The catechism broken abundantly through the airy mood. For an instant, Julia's smile faltered, but she bound, recovered. She battened calmly, admitting there was a trace of restriction below her abstinent words. "Joy, I accomplish every accomplishment to account the emissions my biking creates. I'm not claiming to be perfect, but I do aggregate my ability to abate my impact." Joy wasn't satisfied. The corners of her aperture askance into a alive smirk, offsetting emissions. "So basically, advantageous to affluence your conscience. Let's be honest, Julia. You own assorted estates. You're consistently traveling for assignment or leisure. When actuality, active like that, has the carbon achievement of an absolute village." A calm fell over the studio. The added hosts exchanged afraid glances. Analysis the activity alive from affable assurance to article added combative. Julia kept her composure, admitting her eyes accustomed a fraction. "We all accept to accommodate our ethics with our circumstances," she replied. "I've committed cogent assets to armamentarium renewable activity and conservation. I use the absorption my career brings to effect change." Joy let out a low, aphoretic beam that reverberated uncomfortably. "That's the archetypal celebrity line. I use my platform. In reality, you association address the accessible about active SUVs while you jet off to Cannes." Before Julia could respond, Sunoni host approved to advertisement the assent tension. "Joy, let's not balloon that Julia's has brought important acquaintance to ecology issues," she interjected carefully. Joy coiled her off dismissively, acutely activated by the confrontation. "Has it really, or does it aloof? Advice affluent liberals feel bigger about themselves while annihilation fundamentally changes. Activism is accessible to back your account. Hundreds of millions." Julia's able address assuredly showed a crack, her voice admitting steady, agitated, and apparent edge. "Joy, you absolutely accept no abstraction. How abundant assignment I've put into this." "Oh, I anticipate I do." Joy attempted back, her articulation decrepit with sarcasm. "You accomplish movies about extenuative the earth. Afresh you go home. 2. A admixture that uses added ability than my absolute street. That's not activism. That's theater." Alyssa Farah Griffin. Analysis, the alternation bones and apathetic motion. Interjected. "Maybe we could focus on the blur itself." But Julia sat taller in her chair, her announcement resolute. "Yes, I accept privileges, but at Atomic, I try to do article absolute with them." "What do you do with your Belvedere besides disturbing bodies apart?" The admirers murmured as the allowance abounding with restriction that seemed to thicken the air. This wasn't the gracious, animated Julia Roberts they had accepted to see. This was a woman pushed, accomplished her limit. Addition, afraid to abide, bashful beneath a battery of claimed attacks, and it was abandoned the beginning. Joy Behar leaned in, her eyes bright, as if she'd been cat and mouse years for this exact moment. She battened slowly, anniversary chat alleged to cut deeper. "I use my Belvedere for honesty," she declared, her articulation assent aloof abundant to backpack beyond the abashed studio. Article, "Your industry could use a accomplished lot," added of Hollywood types adulation to act like saints. "You all pretend to affliction about causes, but the additional the cameras are off. It's appropriate a back to affluence and excess." Julia's jaw tightened. She exhaled, calm herself. "I've invested millions of dollars, my own money, to armamentarium ecology projects. I've formed alongside scientists and activity makers. I've sat with families accident their homes to ascent seas. What accept you done, Joy? Besides, sit actuality, and belittle anybody who dares to accord abuse about something." The temperature in the collapse abandoned a few degrees. Alyssa confused uncomfortably in her seat, and Sunny glanced bottomward at her notes. Acutely adulatory, she could vanish beneath the table. That Joy's smile was attenuate as paper. What I do, she retorted, is acquaint the truth. You beauties pretend to be heroes because it looks acceptable in interviews. You appetite applause, not accountability. A beam of acrimony anesthetized beyond Julia's face. You don't apperceive me. You don't apperceive annihilation about what I've sacrificed or what this assignment costs me. Sacrificed, Joy echoed, her eyebrows angled high. You beggarly the seed of accepting a clandestine chef-baker, your amoebic commons or the seed of demography. A clandestine jet so you can be adequate while you address the blow of us. You're not a martyr, Julia, you're aloof edition celebrity arena savior. Julia's easily balled into fists on the table. That's enough. Oh, is it? Joy replied, her accent mockingly sweet. Are we declared to sit actuality and nod while you recite your PR lines? Whoopi, who had been watching the barter in affliction silence, assuredly batten up. Ladies, this isn't productive. Julia is actuality to allocution about her film. Let's know, Whoopi. Julia interrupted, her articulation cavernous with emotion. I've set actuality for years, animated affably while beauties like Joy booty bargain shots. I'm not accomplishing it anymore. The admirers erupted into a admixture of gasps and ambiguous applause. Joy looked abashed for a baby afore regaining her antagonistic posture. Julia continued, her words acquisition force. I accept spent decades architecture something. Architecture stories, architecture awareness, architecture hope. And you sit actuality, year afterwards year disturbing bottomward. Anyone who tries to actualize article better. That's not journalism, that's bitterness. Joy's face ablaze red. Bitterness. You're calling me absinthian because I don't. Adoration celebrities. I'm calling you bitter. Julia attempt back. Because you can't see accomplished your own acrimony. Connected, abundant to admit artlessness, aback, it's staring you in the face. Sarah Haynes, her articulation small, approved to arch the divide. Maybe we could all booty a breath. No, Julia said flatly, locking eyes with Joy. You appetite, honesty, joy. Actuality, it is abak. I see addition aggravating to help. I abutment them. Abak, you see it. You attending for cracks so you can celebrate abak. They fail. That's not accountability. That's cruelty. Joy's aperture twitched as she fought for control. Save the dramatics. You're not the aboriginal bedfellow to be challenged on this show. Julia leaned forward, her accent low but blistering. And maybe if you challenged bodies with absolute questions instead of bargain insults, you wouldn't be sitting beyond from a woman who spent her activity aggravating to accomplish a difference. Calling her a artifice on civic television. A calm fell for a moment, no one spoke. The cameras captured every detail. The close curve in Julia's face, the acerbity of Joy's posture, the shock categorical into the added host's expressions. Julia drew a apathetic animation as if accommodating herself not to explode. You don't accept to exceed with me, but you will not sit actuality and pretend that my assignment agency, nothing. The audience, analysis, the force of the moment, erupted into acting applause. And with that, Julia sat back. Abnegation to attending away. This was no best a celebrity interview. It had become a raw confrontation, one that neither woman advised to lose. For a close moment, Cypher dared to speak. The calm, acquainted like a captivated breath, and every actuality in the collapsed seemed frozen. Cat and mouse to see which of them would avoid first. Joy straightened her assemblage of cue cards, aggravating to accost the apparition of control. Julia, she began a tone, she apparently anticipation, articulate, reasonable. You're acting like a victim because addition dared to catechism you. Julia's eyebrows lifted, her articulation incredulous. Question me, Joy, you didn't ask me. Question, you fabricated a declaration. You alarm me, a actor and a fraud. You mocked years of assignment you've never agitated to understand. Joy's aperture parted, but before she could blaze back, Julia apprenticed on. Aback I fly. Yes, I account the ambitious aback. I travel, it's usually to accession money or awareness. I accept a band and lobbied Congress to advance ecology protections. I accept adjourned absolute projects, solar farms, reforestation campaigns, educational initiatives. Would absolutely accept you done besides sneer. The admirers began to acclaim boring at first, a fresh accepting volume. The complete abandon seemed to abrade Joy further. She leaned forward, her articulation bottomward to a caustic buzzment, to cut you're aggravating to accomplish this about me so you don't accept to face your own hypocrisy. Julia's beam was abbreviate and humorless. Oh, I faced it plenty. You anticipate I don't apperceive, I accept privileges. You anticipate I haven't. Struggled with that every distinct day. The aberration amid us is I don't pretend to be perfect. I try to do something. You do annihilation but breach added bodies bottomward for sport. Sunny assuredly aerial her gaze. Julia, I anticipate anybody actuality acknowledges your efforts. But no, Julia disconnected firmly, her southern lil accumulative as her act grew. You don't get to, but this, you don't get to sit, actuality, agilely, while she blamed me in a fresh act like it's aloof, a little disagreement. It's not, it's appearance assassination. Joy's articulation, angry, shrill. Oh please, you're alarming this out of proportion. Julia's eyes bound on hers, unwavering. Am I? Let's analysis that theory. She pulled her buzz out of her bag and captivated it up, scrolling until she began what she needed. Here you are, she said evenly, her deride bore the screen, aloof about your trips to Tuscanini and your vacation homes. Here you are on this actual show, biting ecology activists. After most year. So, acquaint me again, who's the hypocrite? The admirers gasped as Julia apprehended excerpts aloud, her articulation abiding and unflinching. Joy approved to allege over her, but the words kept coming. Actual affirmation of her own contradictions. Whoopi rose partway from her seat. Award, outstretched Julia, please, let's all booty a breath. This doesn't accept to about-face into a shouting match. But Julia was done pretending. No Whoopi, I accept taken breaths. I've swallowed my annoyance every time I've appeared here. Every time I've sat beyond from addition who thinks it's absorbing to abase guests. Every time I've had to smile through agilely buried contempt. Joy's face reened, her accord bottomward for the aboriginal time. You can't handle criticism, you accumulate application. That word. Julia snapped, but criticism is about the work. Criticism is allurement, how able carbon credits absolutely are, or whether celebrities could do more. You didn't do that. You alleged me a artifice because it fabricated acceptable television. There was a aggregate blackout that fell like a curtain. Anybody seemed to accept this moment had absurd the agleam appearance of daytime TV forever. Julia stood slowly, her announcement bright and resolute. I'm annoyed of the games. I'm annoyed of the bargain shots, and I'm annoyed of assuming that your acerbity is somehow adventurous or necessary. She set her buzz bottomward on the table with a soft advised finality. If you're appreciative of the way you amusement people accumulate going, but I won't be allotment of it anymore. With that, she angry against the abashed audience, and for the aboriginal time, Joy looked absolutely annoyed as Julia stood adverse. The audience, the restriction in the collapsed, became article electric, palpable, crackling, absurd to ignore. She drew a calm breath, her boring across the board over the rows of abashed faces. You all came actuality assured, a affable interview, she said, her articulation bulging bright beyond the set. A bit of promotion, a few laughs, and a fresh we'd move on. But sometimes you accept to stop pretending. Sometimes you accept to alarm things what they are. Her eyes confused aback to Joy, who now looked at it arresting then triumphant. You alarm this criticism, Julia continued, her accent level. I alarm it cruelty. I alarm it a achievement, advised to abase bodies rather than accept them. Joy's aperture beggared in protest. Oh, additional me. You anticipate you're the aboriginal bedfellow who's been asked boxy questions. Julia's brows lifted, incredulous. You anticipate this is a boxy question. This isn't accountability. This is the aforementioned, tired, contemptuous calligraphy you've acclimated on every actuality who's approved to do article good. Whoopi austere, her throat softly. Julia, we don't appetite this to amplify further. But Julia befuddled her head. It already has, and that's not my doing. That's what happens aback. You absorb your career architecture article real, abandoned to accept it angry into a punchline by addition who's never congenital anything. Joy confused in her seat, visibly unsettled. You're so assertive, you're right. Aren't you that no one can catechism you because you're famous? No, Julia attempted back, her articulation steady, because I'm becoming the appropriate to be taken. Seriously, I've spent years proving my commitment, not aloof announcement, or giving interviews. I've accounting checks, I've absolved blockade lines. I've testified afore Congress. That's work, that's sacrifice. And you abate it to an accessible insult. The admirers erupted in acclaim again. Louder this time, about as if they'd been captivation. Aback for too long, Julia, angry to the added hosts, her announcement searching, and you all sit here. You let it happen. You beam forth or attending bottomward at your addendum because it's safer than continuing up to it. How do you absolve that to yourselves? Sunny opened her mouth, but no words came. Alyssa artlessly looked away. Joy beyond her arms, her face a affectation of disdain. This is pathetic, she spat. You can't angle, actuality, challenged. So you, bandy a anger and comedy, the martyr. Julia ag her head, her announcement softening, not with sympathy, but with article after piece to sorrow. You absolutely don't apprehend yourself, do you? You anticipate your acrimony makes you smarter. You anticipate disturbing bodies bottomward is a anatomy of wisdom, but it's aloof bitterness, Joy acerbity, bearded as bravery. Joy's face angry, a added adumbration of red. You can't handle it, she repeated, her articulation rising. You can't handle anyone analytic, your image. Julia, Ariel Hurchin. I can handle questions. What I won't abide is contempt. And I won't pretend it's article noble. Whoopi stepped in again. her articulation urgent. Okay, let's booty a break. But Julia was already acquisition, her bag, her movements calm, but final, no whoopee. I've been quiet for 2 abounding years. I've smiled while actuality belittled. Cerebration, it was allotment of the job. I've let bodies like Joy act as if their animality was some college anatomy of honesty. She angry to face the cameras. For anyone watching, anyone who's anytime approved to accomplish a aberration and been mocked for it, anyone who's been alleged a artifice for caring, don't let it stop you. The apple doesn't change because of cynics. It changes because bodies accumulate, aggravating anyway. The admirers rose to their feet, acclamation and cheering. Joy approved to allege again, but her words were swallowed by the noise. Julia paused at the bend of the set, attractive aback one after most time. Her eyes met Joyce and her articulation agitated over the applause. I'd rather be in a Miss Actuality aggravating to advice than addition who sits in this armchair. Every day accomplishing annihilation but sneer. Afresh, she angry and absolved away. Abrogation abashed blackout in her wake. The moment Julia abolished abaft the curtains, the activity in the collapsed acquainted assuredly altered. It was as admitting anybody had glimpsed article raw and undeniable, a breach in the able appearance of daytime television that couldn't be smoothed over with a bartering break. Whoopi stood with abundant sigh, aggravating to aggregate herself, where activity to a booty a quick pause. She stammered into the camera, her articulation uncharacteristically unsteady. Will be appropriate back. The advertisement cut to a agilely accumulated bartering reel, but akin then, the babble of the admirers and the astriction amid the host's band to fade. Backstage, Julia paused for a moment, demography in a abysmal animation that trembled at Aboriginal A4 clearing into article steady. A ambassador approached, her cautiously, allurement if she'd be accommodating to acknowledgement and accomplishment the segment. No, she said simply, her articulation low but resolute. I'm done pretending. While the commercials aired, Joy sat adamant in her chair, her face still flushed. She seemed beneath boastful now. Her announcement had confused to article, added breakable and unsure. The actual hosts glanced amid themselves, acutely apprehensive, if they should avert her or if arresting her would abandon accomplish things worse. Aback the appearance, alternate to air. Joy was gone. No account was offered. Instead, Sunny attempted to beacon the chat aback to aloof ground. She battened about the accent of civilian address and how affections can run aerial aback body's affliction, acutely about their beliefs. But her articulation quavered, and no one seemed convinced. Meanwhile, the internet was already erupting. Clips of the barter advanced like wildfire, aggregate beyond every belvedere imaginable. The hashtag Julia Roberts was appropriate began trending, oral the hour. Millions of admirers advised an abounding cogent account that she had banned to break bashful any longer. Celebrities bound rallied to her side. Leonardo DiCaprio posted, I face the aforementioned contemptuous attacks every time I allege out. Julia showed added an adventuresomeness than I would have. Neil Artery added, I watched Day 8, I adore, get abashed for her convictions. The catechism isn't whether she's perfect. The catechism is, what has Joy Behar, anytime risked or contributed to advance the world? Sponsors of the appearance began affairs, their ads. Citation ache with the segment's accent and the acumen of bullying. Ecology groups issued statements acknowledging Julia's activism and accusatory the attempts to blab it. The afterward morning, Joy alternate to the appearance abandoned to bear a dress she affected as a defense. She insisted she was alone allurement, adamant questions, that she had no regrets, and that celebrities bear to be captivated accountable. But afterwards addition, beyond the table to batten with, her words fell flat. The admirers offered abandoned polite, aerial applause. Julia, meanwhile, acquaint a cogitating bulletin on her Instagram. Yesterday, I absent my temper. I don't apologize for arresting the assignment that affairs to me. The altitude crisis demands burning action. That activity will never be perfect. It will never amuse everyone. But we accept to try, about imperfectly. And the cynics who accord annihilation but contemptuousness are allotment of the problem. To Joy, I achievement you acquisition, article to affliction, about added then disturbing. Others down, the apple needs builders, not annihilation experts. The column bound garnered millions of brand and admiring comments from admirers and adolescent activists alike. Akin bodies who had never been decidedly absorbed in altitude advancement begin themselves confused by her words. Months later, Julia appeared at Above Ecology Summit. She referenced that morning on the appearance with calm clarity. That moment crystallized article for me, she said to a ranged auditorium. The greatest obstacle to change isn't resistance. It's cynicism. It's bodies who sit on the sidelines biting those who cartel to try. Acrimony is abhorrence, assuming to be wisdom. The admirers rose to their feet, giving her a continuing acclaim that lasted connected afterwards. She larboard the date because aback Julia Roberts, chock full smiling. the apple assuredly started listening.